Welcome back, guys. There isn't much to say on the intro today. I just wanted to thank you all for the support on the last video. Anyways, let's get straight to the point. So, today we are talking about the stigma around mental health. But before we do that, what does stigma mean? So, the textbook definition is a strong feeling of disapproval that most people in a society have about something. So, what this essentially means is that something most people in society don't like. But does it get a different meaning in the mental context? Well, I think in this context, a stigma works more like a mark, this being either self-imposed or imposed by others. So we can say it's a mark of failure or something to be ashamed of. Anyways, today I'm going to be talking about two main topics and then expand on some subtopics. The first one will be social stigma, and the second one will be self stigma. So, as the title suggests, social stigma comes from society. This is mostly because someone or a group of people aren't normal for society. This can be races and people with disabilities, and this results on these people or groups getting discriminated and having stereotypes placed on them. So the subtopics will be the stigma around health and the stigma around men. And the reason I'm only going to be talking about men is because these videos are based on my personal experience, and I feel like I'm not in the place to be talking about women, as I might just end up saying stuff that's plain wrong and isn't correct. So yeah. So for this first section, we'll touch on the stigma around health. Now, this isn't just mental, but also physical. The first example of this is obesity. Most times we will immediately assume that a fat person is lazy and doesn't move too much, that maybe they lack self-control and can't stop eating. But most of the time, these people aren't at fault of being larger. Maybe genetics did them dirty. Maybe they have some sort of medical condition. For example, one of my friends was pretty fat back when we were younger, but that was only because of the medication he needed to take. Obese people will definitely feel this stigma and will feel terrible for themselves. This can lead to problems such as avoiding others, which is going to be a common consequence of stigmas. They can develop an eating disorder, and they might gain a resentment for medical health, for one reason or the other. To avoid this, we need to realize most of the time weight is influenced by factors outside our control. Another one is disabled people. This one can be both mental and physical. I don't have much to say personally on this one, but I do know that this group of people tend to be underestimated and treated like they can't keep up to what a normal person can. This being sports, schools, and stuff like that. The main problem with disabled people is they are bound to be excluded from normal people. For example, in schools, most of the time, disabled people will have their own classes and don't really get to interact with anyone else. And even in adulthood, I remember seeing like disabled people being treated like children, which I can only imagine it sucks. And to finish off the health part, we are going to talk about the mental stigma. Mental illness like schizophrenia, anxiety, depression, and amnesia. People with these problems get labeled as lazy, violent, or weak, depending on the mental illness. And to be honest, I was also a offender of this when I was younger, as I really didn't take mental health seriously. But that's besides the point right now. Anyways, society often treats mental illnesses like some sort of failure, as I already stated. And this will make a person hesitate to share their feelings or seek help, which eventually leads to isolation. These people might be constantly hearing that they just need to think positive or to pull yourself together and figure things out, which will probably just make things worse. This won't be such a problem if we manage to somehow educate society on this topic, but we both know that won't happen anytime soon as mental illnesses are portrayed negatively in media too, so that only makes things worse. So now we are going to talk about the social stigma around men. I imagine most of you watching are male, so you might already know what's coming, but the thing I really wanted to touch on is stereotypes, expectations, and overall pressure placed on us by society. The first one is a classic. Men don't cry. Crying in a man is always gonna be seen as weak, and we hear that all around us. We are taught that men need to be tough and be the provider, and we are naturally expected to find a way out of problems by ourselves. This results in men suppressing their emotions, which, if you're a guy watching this, you probably still do that. Now, it's not easy to get rid of these ideas, and societally definitely doesn't help. This results in us isolating mentally from other people, and if it gets bad enough and we fall to the pressure, we might just start avoiding people in general. This is a mentality that's really hard to break out of. People might tell us that we can talk to them or that it's fine, but it goes deeper than that. After all, I believe actions speak louder than words. We can't simply change our minds on this stigma because someone tells us. It's okay. It takes some serious strength and bravery to manage to break out of this stigma, in a way, and not to feel ashamed to share our feelings. Sadly, I believe every single one of us will or has suffered because of this at some points in their lives, but the best we can do is aim for a future where we can truly show that not being the ideal man is fine. So, moving into our second and last major topic, we have self-stigma. But what exactly is this about self-stigma? As so far in this video, I've only talked about it being as something society places on a person or group of people. So, we become a victim of self-stigma when we are going through something rough. We might not be happy with our place in life, for example, or maybe we feel ashamed of something we did. A person will start to believe in negative stereotypes set by society, which will start something similar to a self-destruct. But how does this self-stigma develop? Well, it ties into what we learned about the social stigma around mental health. We all believe that we are weak because we can't just be happy, crack jokes, and spend time with people we loved anymore. I mean, if we were happy back then, why wouldn't I be now? Guys will avoid seeking help because people are expected to be strong and just to figure it out on their own. Anyways, what impact will self-stigma make on a person? Well, the first one is rather obvious, but someone's mental health will start declining. They might develop anxiety, feel stressed and always tired, and this will ultimately lead to depression. However, do you think someone going through this can handle this depression in a healthy way? They will probably just think they are weak or that they are broken and won't consider actually having a mental illness, and will go back to blaming themselves for their problems. With depression, they will feel unwanted, forgotten, and if they still talk to people and haven't isolated themselves yet, they will feel like a burden. They probably won't seek help or hide the fact they are struggling mentally when they are around people, either because of expectations, fear of being called weak, or maybe that's just because that's not who that person is. They might feel like they aren't themselves anymore and lost their identity, which will only distance them further from their friends and partners. Eventually, they will do nothing. Like they say, time does heal all wounds, but eventually doing nothing will do more damage than if we did something. And a person will feel like their whole life is just falling apart. And who knows what someone can do if they feel like life isn't worth living anymore. And if you didn't notice, this comes from personal experience. As much as I hate to admit it, I did go through something like this just a couple months back. Thankfully, I never considered making an attempt on my own life, nor did I get stuck in that state of mind. But like I said, doing nothing eventually did more damage. I won't get too much into detail on what happened in this video, since I plan on doing story type videos and separate them from these kinds of videos. But what I'll say right now is that coming back from this whole thing I went through didn't come without some sacrifices. But I really can't blame anyone but myself for that one. Anyways, that's it for this video. Again, this ended up being shorter, but a lot deeper and darker than the last one. But I feel like this is a really important topic people don't talk about. I mean, I even asked some of my friends if they knew what stigma meant, and nobody knew. Also, you don't really need to worry about me because of what I said. I truly am fine right now. As always, feel free to reach out to me through Discord. It's the easiest way to do this as I'm pretty active on there. And for today's song recommendation, we got Miss Misery Guts by Reproducer. I just really like this one. Again, not related to the video. And as always, I'll see you next week.